Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right? But I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who can move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yards. You know, you get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But, you know, I do have hope for him. I think at season's end, he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low-end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Let's do this thing. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. The pimps, the players, the hustlers, the people that bust them, and everybody else in between. We're throwing it down. The Friday Night Freak Show has begun, and we've got a lot of stuff to unpack. Countdown to kickoff is on. National Football League playoffs, and we've got a lot of games going on right now. There's a couple of late games on the card as well this evening, but it's all about the National Football League right now. You know, we've tried not to get ahead of ourselves and get too fired up for these games, but now that the countdown to kickoff is on, we're locked and loaded. We're ready to do this thing. We got a full house on the program tonight. Lou Gamblu returns to the rotation this evening. NFL playoffs, UFC 311 with Lou. We got a big UFC card, and there was a change to the main event on the card, so we'll let Lou sort through UFC 311 and where we stand right now. It feels weird saying 311. I don't remember exactly the first one that I went to and or like when we started covering it and talking about it. I'm going to say, like, you know what I mean? I used to watch it and stuff like before it got really big, like in the early, the Hoist Gracie days and stuff. But, you know, I started in 2002. And sort of MMA started sort of at the same time, coming along around that era. I'm going to say, maybe somebody out there like that's been listening and watching the show for a while, but I'm going to say like in the UFC 40s type of deal. Right? You know what I mean? UFC 40s. Like for some reason, I'm thinking, I don't know, UFC 47 or something. I mean, you know, we were at like, you know, a lot of them, but I remember, you know, UFC 100 we were at, you know, so many of them, 70 this, 89 that, and all this. And not to mention, that's just their pay-per-views, 311, right? Like, they've got, like, you know, UFC Vegas 100, and not to mention, you know, the Fight Night 272 or whatever. You know, it's amazing how many cards this company puts on. Say what you will about them, but the UFC has really filled a void. You know, is it too much? Yes and no. You know, and no, because, you know what I mean, they're making money with the content, and hardcores like it. Right, hardcores don't mind it. That it's like, yeah, there's a couple of, you know, you got the Dana White Contender Series, you got a UFC card every week essentially, with the exception of a couple of weeks off now. So there's always a card for the hardcores, and then for the sort of casuals, right? You got your pay-per-view every month, right? You got a big card every month, and you got, 3 other cards. And it's pretty crazy, but I will admit and call myself a casual now. Some of these fight nights, I don't know who the hell these people are. I guess I could dig in and stuff, but, we're more the casual. We're the casual now. It's crazy because we used to host a freaking MMA show, but it is what it is. Times change. But that's why we got Lou on the show. So Lou steps up and in. Lou, of course, bets on the NFL. Joe Gibbs, not the coach. It'd be good to get the coach on. I've interviewed Joe Gibbs before. Very nice man. Of course, NASCAR champion as well. But the NFL ref guru, Joe Gibbs, in the house with us tonight. We'll go over the referees, the trends, the stats for the referees that got the assignments for the National Football League playoff games. Rob Vino in the house. Tony Finn in the house. Cam Stewart in the house this evening. We'll take an advanced look at the national championship game on Monday night, although I don't, it seems to me it feels a little anticlimactic, this. And maybe it's because I'm a Michigan fan. And, we're going to be live. So a programming note, we're going to be live on One Last Dance, the national championship game, Monday night, our YouTube streams on SiriusXM channel 159, SportsGrid On Demand on YouTube. And I was thinking, man, the Buffalo Bills, they better win, man, on Sunday. I couldn't, it just sort of had this flash thought of, oh, my God, if the Bills lose, and then the following day, my first show on is me doing the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the national championship. I'm not, I'm not, I can't get too, excited about that prospect right now. So the Buffalo Bills better win. And, listen, the world is loaded up. Nobody believes in the Buffalo Bills. Hell, Ed Reed says Josh Allen can't handle pressure. Numerous unnamed NFL executives and general managers say that the Buffalo Bills will not be able to handle the physicality of the Baltimore Ravens. The odds makers are the only ones that were on the side of the Buffalo Bills, right? The odds makers just set the number. The market will dictate it after. And the odds makers opened up the Buffalo Bills as 1.5-point favorites. And it was the public, although the sort of eagle-eye, sharp pro-betting public that stepped up and in earlier in the week and all hammered the Baltimore Ravens. The media has given Lamar Jackson was voted All-Pro. And basically, 99% of the time, whoever wins the All-Pro award at the position ends up, you win the MVP. It's the same voters. So if they voted for Lamar Jackson as All-Pro 1 at the quarterback position, the same people, they're not going to say he was All-Pro and then say he's not the MVP if they just voted him to be All-Pro. So Josh Allen is not going to get the MVP, which I don't mind because as a Buffalo Bill fan, we all know MVPs don't win the Super Bowl. It's not about MVPs, man. The only MVP, fine. Win the MVP in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares about the MVP in the regular season besides people that bet on it, the actual player themselves, and their agent that's getting a cut of the bonus money. Other than that, who cares? What do you care who wins the MVP? Like I said, unless you bet on it, right? If you bet on it, fine. Then I guess you care. But the Buffalo Bills have a lot of sort of extra fire to play with coming into this football game. Yet, meanwhile, while we all talk about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and it starts to get hostile, and people start to take sides, and it almost gets racial, and people just can't debate things without everything getting ugly and insane all the time. What about Patrick Mahomes? Seriously, if you're Patrick Mahomes, you're watching these shows, and they all watch, they all know, and they're all online. Some people, they don't admit it. Some of them have burners. Some of them, they're all reading online stuff. They all see everything. So, if I'm Patrick Mahomes, I'm thinking, and even the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole, do they even exist? There's been so much talk this week about the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. If I'm the Houston Texans, I'm a little bit worried about this, that, oh, wow, man. Kansas City are going to have a chip on their shoulder. These guys are going to be nobody's even talking about them coming into this game. But with all that being stated, I think the Houston Texans can hang around with the Kansas City Chiefs. Or is it wishful thinking? Is it wishful thinking? Like Toronto Blue Jay fans, once again, believing that they could potentially get a big-time free agent as Roki Sasaki makes it official and signs with, you guessed it, the Los Angeles Dodgers. As I find it kind of amusing that it was just a couple of months ago that before the Dodgers won the World Series, that Dave Roberts sucked, the Dodgers are chokers, the COVID World Series didn't count, and now they win another World Series, and now fast forward to the Dodgers are ruining baseball. No, your lame-ass owners are ruining baseball. Every Major League Baseball owner has deep pockets. All right, this isn't like, the Dodgers aren't doing anything confusing here, right? You build a winning culture, you treat the players well, you pay them well, and you win baseball games. And, oh, what a shock. Players want to play there. So people are talking about, the Dodgers, you need a salary cap. People are so stupid. You realize that, Sasaki has like $6 million? Money wasn't the factor. This kid could have chosen anywhere to go when he chose the Los Angeles Dodgers, because the Dodgers are the place to be right now. This is Sports Rage. Let's roll.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is Sports Rage. I am Gabriel Morency, the Pittsburgh players, the hustlers, the people that bust them, and everybody else in between. Let's do this thing. We've got a stacked program tonight. Gamblu in the house. Joe Gibbs throws it down with us. Tony Finn, Rob Vino. As I stated, we've got a bunch of guests on the show tonight. And we've got a new league, actually, that started this evening as well. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of days about Unrivaled. And I didn't realize that it was ready to tip off tonight. I heard about Sabrina Ionescu playing in it earlier in the week, and I heard, Caitlin Clark said decline the invite. And I didn't really fully get it. I'm like, what's this like unrivaled? Is someone coming after the WNBA? And I didn't really look into it too much. But then I did a bit, and I clued in. I'm like, no, it's a 3-on-3 league. It's very similar kind of in a way to the TGL, right? Like, except the WNBA players actually need the money, unlike the golfers. So these WNBA players, they're not making a ton of money to begin with, and they got permission. In WNBA contracts, you've got permission to play. Like, that's how Brittany Griner got busted in Russia, etc. She was playing there and in the non-WNBA season. So they started this 3-on-3 league where it's fun, upscale, you know what I mean, upbeat and stuff, modern, 3-on-3, but it's WNBA players. And it's really good. And we start off 2-0, baby. We told you guys, let's take Team Vinyl to beat Team Rose. Team Vinyl wins 79-73. Game goes over to 141.5. And I'm really good with these new leagues and stuff for whatever reason. When I saw this, I was like, man, it's the only thing I'm betting on tonight. I don't care about anything else. It's never been a game before, and I'm going to win. And we did. So we're 2-0 in the unrivaled. We got NBA basketball going on right now, college basketball, but it's all about the NFL. And we got UFC 311 coming up. And that's why we got Lou stepping up and in from the deserts of Arizona in the house. NFL playoffs and UFC 311, man. You must be, I'm looking for an expression here, as happy as the Shriners in Vegas on Labor Day weekend. How you doing?
You hit the nail on the head, Gabriel. I'm happy to be here. It's a great weekend, and gonna be busy. So I'm not as active these weeknights with no football or UFC, but I'll be active this weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel the same way. When I've been betting sort of casually throughout the week, Lou and Cam, but I'm a big Bills fan, Lou. You got the big NFL national championship. And I'm focused on the games, props, looking at the players, reading up. What are the quotes? What are the coaches saying? What are the players saying? So, now I'm in that fired up mode that it's actually getting here tomorrow. So before we get to UFC 311, I'll throw it to you, Lou. I just said off the top, everybody in the world and the media and we're all talking about, Lamar Jackson, this, Baltimore, that, Josh Allen and Buffalo, this and that. Nobody's talking about the Kansas City Chiefs or Patrick Mahomes. It's funny. Mahomes is the kingpin of the NFL. I haven't heard a guy's name mentioned all week. And you got the Houston Texans going in there getting 8.5 points. What do you think about the opening match of the NFL playoffs, Lou?
Well, I'm excited for the game. And to be honest, I think we've seen enough of both teams, and we saw them compete against each other some weeks ago. I believe the Chiefs' goal is not to blow out the Texans, but to be healthy going into next week's game against whichever stalwart team shows up at Kansas City. Why is this line so cheap? Why is it so easy to tease Kansas City down? Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I leaned to the under, and I like Houston and all those points. D'Amico Ryans in defense, in weather, I'm going to eat it up.
Defensively, they're very evenly matched. Listen, Spagnuolo's a stud. No one's going to dispute it. And KC's defense always raises it up a notch in the playoffs even. But, just as far as numbers, Lou, they give up 19 points a game, Kansas City. Very impressive. Houston only gave up 21 points a game. Right? If you know what I mean? So Houston aren't easy to score on. They've got a good pass rush. They've got a good secondary. They've drafted really well over the years. On the defensive side of the football, there's always talk about C.J. Stroud and blah, blah, blah. But the Texans can ball. D'Amico Ryan is a defensive guy. They've got a really good defense. The question is, how many points do they need to cover the point spread in this game? And I'm kind of thinking 17. 24-17 gets us there, right? Can they get to 17 or 20? I figure if Houston get to 20, Lou, we can cover the number.
That seems high. I think 16, 17 is where they're going to end up, because I think they want to take the air out of the ball when they have it. The status of Mixon is big. You're probably going to see some Pierce behind him. But, excuse me, they're going to have to run the ball and keep that Kansas City offense off the field. And they're going to have to try and find a way to score in the first quarter, kind of like who was it last week that had no way of covering and scored the first touchdown of the game and ended up getting blown out against the Bills.
Denver against Buffalo.
Yeah, there was. But Denver covers the half, and I'll tell you one another angle in this game. If that line gets a little higher, if you can find a 6 or a 7, I don't know what halftime line is yet, but I'd be all about at first half Houston plus a 6 or 7 if you could get that number up there.
And don't forget, the Kansas City Chiefs haven't played a real football game in 23 days.
Exactly.
It's going to be a little while, so it could. We'll see. I kind of get the feeling, Cam, if anyone's adverse to not being rusty, it'll be these dudes with Andy Reid and stuff.
You're right. But, Gabe, still, I know they're at home, but timing and all these other things. Like, you can practice it, but game is different. Will Anderson has become one of the biggest disruptors in the NFL. He's a monster. Herbert basically was like, get this guy off me. And the Chargers have a good line. Stingley Jr. has really picked up his game. All those guys. Houston's D, I think they can live off it, Gabe. And I'll tell you, that offensive line of the Chiefs, it's not going to be easy for them. And if Mahomes gets hit hard, they'll keep on coming and coming and coming. I'm with you guys. I think it's going to be a real tight game. I'll take the pooch.
Should be noted, Patrick Mahomes in the divisional round is 6-0 with 16 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions.
That's a problem.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Friday Night Free Show continues. This is SportsRage. I'm Morency. Throwing it down on the SportsGrid Radio and Television Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. Lou from Gamblu.com in the house with us right now. We'll get into the UFC 311, but let's talk about the Commanders and the Lions. And, you know, these games in this divisional round, I get the feeling like, sort of like when you're a kid and you're about to do something wrong, but you do it anyways. That's how I feel about these games. Like, I just feel like, you know what I mean? There's like back of my mind sort of scenarios in which it's like, man, I got to take the 9.5 points with the Washington Commanders. But then also I have a vision of, man, I could see them losing 41-21 or something like that. Trading touchdowns until they can't with the Lions. Similar situation with the Rams and Eagles, where I could see the Eagles. I could see Matt Stafford struggling. I could see the Rams hitting the wall after the emotional win on Monday. Now back-to-back road games, essentially travel, going into Philadelphia. But then at the same point in time, I don't like Philadelphia's offense. Right? I didn't think they looked that good last week against Green Bay. I think Philadelphia are beatable. And it wouldn't surprise me if, like, the Rams beat them. It really is. I think these are tough games to bet on. You can't tell me Buffalo and Baltimore is not a tough game to bet on. They're tough games to bet on this weekend, Lou, in my opinion.
Well, the bookmaker's been giving money away the whole second half of the season. I think they're getting sick and tired of it, number one. I will say Philly and LA, that's a game I like under. It's also a game I like Philly. Yeah, Philly looked bad last week, but again, they played last week. Now they're at home. We're going to have conditions, and they're getting a West Coast team come out there and have to play outdoors in the cold. I just don't see much. I don't have a lot of hope in the Rams. I couldn't take the 6. I know it's a popular choice, but I think by the end of the game, that thing backdoors, but on the other side, on the Philly side, and they end up winning by, 10 or better.
I do agree with you with the under. For the record, I threw out a score just sort of by instinct earlier today when I was speaking with Scotty Farrell. I said 23-20 for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I kind of think it will be close, but I got the Eagles surviving and advancing. So what about the Detroit and Washington game on Saturday night, Lou? What do you think about the track meet that a lot of people think is in store?
Yeah, that's one that I don't have a lot of opinion on. I think it's going to be hard to beat Detroit. Any NFC team's going to have a hard time beating Detroit in Detroit. If a gun to my head, I'm going under just because football's out and everybody doesn't know. But that's the game I'm not betting this weekend.
All right, and then Buffalo and Baltimore, in which the market, the sportsbooks made Buffalo a 1.5-point favorite when they opened up the line for this game. And it was the early so-called sharp money that moved the market here. Lou, I'm still waiting for a buyback on Buffalo, which I think there will be before kickoff. I don't know if people are – I don't think it's getting to 2. I think there are 1.5s out there at FanDuel and DraftKings. I know that. There's mostly 1s, but there are some plus 1.5s out there. What do you think about the number in the game, Lou?
I have strong feelings on this game, Gabriel, and my strong feelings are that there's a slight edge in coaching, and I'm going to have to give it to Harbaugh, despite the fact that he and Monken sat around a barrel last year in the playoffs and puked into it when they didn't run the ball at all. Okay, so I'm not going to hang that one. I'm not going to hang that one on Lamar. However, the other playoff games that Baltimore has been involved in, they found themselves early in the game in a competitive game where they're tied or behind, and Lamar is forced now to play a different game, and it's a game that he's unable to play. He's a sensational football player, but the edge in quarterback in these two games is substantially sitting on the Buffalo side. This year, Buffalo's tougher. They play run defense. They run the ball. And I think the coach has had his face rubbed in the manure in playoff misery the last few years enough that we're going to get their best effort. And I love the Buffalo tease position here, and I love the Buffalo money line position here. I don't really go into player props much because I'm going to have enough investment in those two, Buffalo money line, Buffalo tease, that I'll get my yayas watching that.
It's always cliche to say that the first goal or the first this or the first quarter is important. But as you just stated, with the Baltimore Ravens, it really is. Like, if you're the Buffalo Bills, you need to ambush them early. Touchdown first drive. Touchdown second drive. Let's go, Lamar. You know what I mean?
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Friday Night Free Show continues. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. The Bucks just beat the Raptors. Final score 130 to 112. Game goes over the 233, and the Milwaukee Bucks covers 11-point favorites. Brooklyn Nets, who got absolutely massacred by the Los Angeles Clippers the other night, now get an opportunity of redemption against the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't know, there's two ways of looking at this. A lot of times when teams are like seriously humiliated like that, good example is the Raptors lost to the Celtics a couple of weeks ago by 54. They beat them outright the other night when they played. And the Raptors brought it up, and the Raptors aren't very good. And the Raptors said, man, we all talked about it, but what happened last time, and, you know, that was embarrassing. And they actually beat the Celtics outright as 15-point underdogs, 14.5-point underdogs the other night. So you can say, all right, are Brooklyn going to show something? They did lose by 59, or you could argue, you know, it's only 9.5. You could play the Lakers. I see people in our chat asking about the game. I would say, how the hell do you take the Brooklyn Nets here, guys? LeBron's on fire right now as well. He's really playing good basketball. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers put a beat down on the Brooklyn Nets here. Gamblu in the house. What is Cam Stewart throwing it down? And Lou, as we were saying, you know, the market likes Baltimore. The media likes Baltimore. Hell, Ed Reed, Ed Reed was a coach on the Bills. Ed Reed came out and said Josh Allen can't handle pressure. And that's why Baltimore is going to win. The All-Pro vote for the quarterback went to Lamar, which I don't care about. But if you win the All-Pro, you're going to be the MVP. The media is giving Lamar the MVP over Josh. The betting public is betting the Ravens over the Buffalo Bills. You know, the MVP's been lost. Like, man, to me, this is just a perfect storm for the Buffalo Bills to be stewing at home, Lou. You know what I mean? Like, this is a definition of circle the wagons, because players hear all this stuff in the modern era.
They do, and it's an easy coaching job for McDermott, I think, to really calmly behind there let them know that, listen, they're coming to our house and trying to take our right to go get to Kansas City. Let's go take care of business. I'll tell you what, here's one thing everyone will agree on, that the whole country's going to be watching this game tomorrow. It's going to be sensational.
I was going to say one thing I think we could all agree on is we want Houston to beat Kansas City.
Yes.
If you're a Baltimore or Buffalo fan, both, like, you know what I mean? Either way, you'd be hosting the Houston Texans after. So, like, that's, to me, that would be the perfect weekend. Somehow, like, Houston knocks Kansas City out somehow tomorrow, which I think is wishful thinking. And as I stated going into a break before, that the Chiefs are 6-0 under Patrick Mahomes in the divisional round. So they haven't lost in this spot. And, the Houston Texans are 0-5 in this spot. 5 times the Texans have won a wild card game, made it to the next round. They've never won. All right, so, and the Chiefs have never lost. So you got an 0-5 versus a 6-0 scenario here, and we won't even get into Andy Reid off a bye week and all of that, right? I mean, that's another thing. Who do you think goes to the Super Bowl, Luke? Because you said you think it'll be tough to anyone to beat Detroit. I agree. I think the Lions are going to be the ones that go to the Super Bowl. Like, if the Eagles survive, I think the Lions would beat them in Detroit. So I think the Lions are actually going to the Super Bowl. Who do you have going to the Super Bowl?
No disagreement there. Some weeks ago, we released clients' exactas on the Super Bowl, and this was before the wild card round, so we got decent odds. And it was Kansas City against Philly, Kansas City against Detroit, Buffalo against Kansas City, and Buffalo against Detroit. Or Buffalo against Philly and Buffalo against Detroit. So Detroit and Philly, Kansas City and Buffalo. Any of that combination, and we'll bank. I also got some futures on Kansas City and Buffalo for the AFC. So I don't believe I'm clouded in my vision of this Buffalo-Baltimore game. I think that eventually the quarterback position has to step to the forefront. And it seems each year that's where that's where Baltimore has tripped up. And until they prove otherwise, I'm going to roll with Buffalo in this game.
I don't want to say that the window, as I said, sort of like when Joe Burrow was asked, is your window closing? And he said, my window will be open as long as I'm in the NFL. Right. And I sort of buy into that. If you have Josh Allen, you got a chance. But the Bills, they've won 1 million division titles in a row right now. They don't really have anything to show for this. And eventually other teams just, the landscape of the land changes and other teams appear and, new stars arrive. So I don't want to say if not now, when, if you're the Bills, but it seems to me, and I follow the Bills as closely as anybody, and over the years, like the different vibes of the team, this is arguably the best team that they've had. Like, as far as being a team, right? They literally have. I mean, guys, they set a record. They had like 14 guys score a touchdown this year, right? Like, they literally mix it up. You've got Curtis Samuel. You've got Keon Coleman. You've got Amari Cooper. You've got Dawson Knox. You got Dalton Kincaid. You got James Cook. You've got Johnson. You've got Josh Allen to stop. They really are just, they're dynamic. You can't just like, all right, we got to stop Stephon Diggs. And then Diggs gets mad he didn't get the ball after on the sideline. They really are a dynamic offense. Defensively, I'm not going to be naive. We've got to contain Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry has burnt the Bills before a lot in the past. Derrick Henry's had success with the Titans against the Bills, and Derrick Henry's had success earlier this year in the game. The Bills going to have to tighten up that interior run defense, and everything will be fine, but I think that Josh Allen's going to will them the victory.
Yeah, I really think that if I could have told you last year, hey, come on, Buffalo, get off Stephon Diggs in this wide receiver game. Give me a running game and some run defense. Well, they did that. So here we are. I agree with everything you said.
Buffalo
I think they're a tougher
Diggs
team than they were last year.
Is the best thing that ever happened to them. You don't have a guy chirping in Allen's ear all the time. They're a team guy. You got Shakir in the post. You picked up Coleman in the draft. You get a guy like Amari Cooper for the playoffs. Cook can run. It's perfect, Gabe. Exactly what Gabe said. They have 1 million guys.
Don't forget that tight end.
Yeah, Kincaid and Knox is coming on, too. They got 2 good tight ends. That's the thing. They got major weapons and no hotheads.
The key is early in this football game to get ahead of schedule, get ahead of the sticks, make the Baltimore Ravens being the ones playing from behind in this game. And it's amazing how quickly narratives change. Like I said, like Buffalo played well last week. Josh Allen, played well played great. Yet there's just been this big narrative about, they're going to implode. I read one unnamed executive said the Bills were going to lose to Denver and they're going to blow it up and McDermott's going to get fired. It's like people, and to a certain extent, the Bills are the Toronto Maple Leafs or these other teams that never win. So there's always that people are just waiting for the implosion all the time, right? I mean, and the Bills have lost at home a couple of times. They have underachieved in the playoffs the past couple of years. So I get it, but this is a different Bills team this year.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think this is a different team. They've had a different edge to them all season long. They're not overly confident. They've been overly confident in past years. False overconfidence.
Great point. And the old Bills teams, remember when Cincinnati punched them in the face? They didn't come back in that game. It was like, oh my God, what a horrible home performance. Denver scores on the first damn drive. Bills were not even rattled at all. Okay. Everything's fine. They figure out Bo Nix. Bam, 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 bam. And then just all of a sudden beat the living crap out of Denver. That's the difference. The old Bills team are like, oh my God, here we go again. Like the Leafs do in the playoffs. Oh my God, we're down. Like, that's the thing. You're right, Gabe. They're totally different. And they have guys on their team, and Allen's taking it up a notch. Even McDermott's going for it more. He's learned from his mistakes.
I said this earlier in the year. The big difference for the Buffalo Bills, forget about the X's and O's and everything else, is the band of killers, Mr. Brightside. No. Simple as that.
In the elevator room about those guys in Vegas.
Mr. Brightside is the song to put him over the top.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's do this thing. This is SportsRage. I'm Morency. Talking football with Lou, Cam Stewart. Let's get into the UFC card. UFC 311. Lou's one of the best in the business. And we had a last second replacement here, Lou, for the main event. Moicano is in. And he's a big time underdog. Plus 700. What did you think about the change? Did you like the fight before the change? And what do you think about it now?
Love the fight beforehand. I feel UFC fans are just going to we're going to be disappointed to not get Sarukian and Makachev. There's great respect between both camps. That's because both guys are total world-class vice grip wrestlers, strikers, etc. We're not going to get that, but we're going to get a colorful guy in Moicano that's won 4 straight. He's a little longer, little taller than Makachev. I just don't know how he's going to keep Makachev off of him. In Makachev's second UFC fight, a guy named Adriano Martins knocked him out. So, Moicano, what he did, he made Benoit Saint-Denis look like he was on roller skates in his last fight. If he can flying knee or hit him with some kind of elbow and catch Makachev, it's not out of the realm. And for that price, there's only one way to go. Why would I try and take Makachev's sub or Makachev's second or third round and have to look through a microscope? Why don't we just take Moicano inside the distance for a flyer, take the huge price for peanuts, and find some money on the other side of the card?
And let me ask you about the total. 1.5, Lou. You know what I mean? Like, just because the number, you have a 12-1 favorite in a fight, so the total is going to be so correlated there. But I think Moicano can give us 1.5 rounds, Lou. I mean, what about the total here at 1.5?
That's what we want. That's what we would like to think. As fans, we want to see this go a little while. The greatest rivalry.
Yeah, it's like The Simpsons with Homer Simpson. Just give us 3 rounds. You couldn't even give us 3 rounds, Mo. Take your $200,000 check. You'll always be a loser. And like Mo says, he goes, I don't need your money. And he takes the check and he puts it in his pocket.
Awesome. Classic.
Yeah, there's a great rivalry between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Russian wrestling. The Russians tend to, I've been taught that the kryptonite to BJJ is world-class wrestling. That's what Makachev has. But Moicano's deft on the ground. He's a black belt, world-class BJJ practitioner besides being deft on his feet. So for me, if I'm going to fiddle there, I'm probably going to look at DraftKings and get myself something. The fight starts round 2, and I'll pay whatever price I got to.
And respect to Makachev for saying after, I don't care who I'm fighting. I like to, and a lot of guys would be like, whoa, I didn't prepare for this opponent. I'm not doing this. And, reschedule it. And I liked his comments in which he said, if you're truly the best, you shouldn't matter who you're fighting. He said, I don't care. He said, I'm the best and I respect my opponent, but I don't care who I'm fighting. Bring it on. I respect that, Lou. Not all fighters would think the same way. Like, put it this way, a lot of American fighters wouldn't. You know what I mean? He's, like you said, these Eastern European dudes, bro. They're just badasses.
Well, and that's what, and in some of these next fights we're going to talk about guys that can't get fights. Makachev is not a guy that's going to dodge anybody. He ain't afraid. But everywhere else, there's guys that want to play musical chairs because they don't want to fight this guy, don't want to fight that guy. I totally agree with you. I thought it was refreshing that Makachev said, just give me a body and let me earn.
So speaking of which, so what about Davashili here and Nurmagomedov here? Umar, I stumbled on that. What do you think about this one, Lou? Minus 275. You got a plus 225 underdog here. Another 2 badass wrestlers.
Yeah, about 4 days ago, this 225 underdog was 275, 295 underdog. And there was a lot of talk on Twitter. And even at 225, I think the price is a little bit disrespectful to Merab, the champion. That being said, Merab is a decision machine. He doesn't have any power in his hands. He hasn't really accomplished any major finishes, albeit he's fought the who's who of the division. So he has that. He has strength of competition over the opponent. He's got experience over the opponent. The issue is the opponent shouldn't be negated because no one will fight him. Corey Sandhagen, who's a top 3 fighter in the division, stood up to fight him. And he beat Corey Sandhagen pretty good. Sandhagen is damn good. I think Umar's the real deal. And I think Merab has gotten way too overly emotional in this fight about respect. We know he didn't want to take this fight this soon. We know he didn't want to take this fight against Umar. He would have fought King Kong before Umar Nurmagomedov. And with all that being said, I'm probably not betting this fight. But if I had a gun to my head, I'd have to take Umar maybe inside the distance. I think Merab's a little too overly emotional.
You know, the fight to go the distance, guys, is minus 235. No is plus 175. Just for the record, for the fight not to go the distance. Lou, what do you think about the Hill fight here with Prochaska? And I saw that the Yuri shaved his head donating money, class act. He's a class individual. And then I see Hill basically storming gyms and wanting to fight Pereira, or at least getting in his face. Is he over that loss, Lou? Like, this is his first fight. Is he over that loss? And I know he wasn't in the best condition. He took that last fight. You know what I mean? So where's he at here right now? Because he's favored here. Should he be favored in this fight?
I think so, based on the fact that Yuri doesn't even know how to spell defense. I mean, Yuri is your consummate warrior, offensive warrior. He's aggressive. He's coming forward. And he's game and he's willing. That said, he keeps his arms at his side. Pereira exposed him twice. Kick him in the calf, kick him in the knee, kick him in the hip, and then kick him in the head and put him out. So,
you know what? As you said that, Lou, we're going to a break here, but you'll never find a picture of Yuri like this. Like you said, his hands, you always see his torso.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It's 15-15 right now at the Crypt in Los Angeles. And remember, it was 21-21 after the first quarter at the Intuit Dome the other night. And then they ended up losing by 59. So I'm just stating, let's wait for this number to drop. It was 9.5 before tip-off. It's fallen to 7.5 right now. Let's let the first quarter play out, and we'll jump in on the Lakers. The Nets will fade a little bit. But we see this, right? Oftentimes, teams in sports, unless you're the Vancouver Canucks, teams will get humiliated and then bounce back early in the game. They might not win the next game, but, like, it happens in the NBA a lot, Cam. Like, if a team loses by 40 or 50, the first quarter, at least, like, you know what I mean, they have a little bit of pride. Like, the coach will be on their ass. Hey, guys, we lost by 59 the other night. You're going to play hard, but eventually reality kicks in anyways, whether you're playing hard or not. So I kind of get the feeling here, too. The Nets, whatever, they're battling early. Lakers take them for granted. Let's let the number, if it dips a little bit, I don't know if it's going to get better than this, guys. The Lakers are up by 2 right now, but it has fallen to 7.5 right now. Lou in the house with us for a couple of more minutes. And so as far as, we'll move on from the Hill fight, but it sounds like you're liking Hill in this fight due to lack of years defense. And Hill's a dangerous dude to fight if you're not a defensive fighter. Like, let's just call that out for what it is. Like,
he's limited in his own way, but he has an ability to evade strikes while the other guy doesn't, and that's the difference there. Neither of these two guys is top 4 material in the division.
So you've liked some fights on the undercard, and Cam was asking you about the Holland fight, and you also said that you had to share a specific fight with us. I don't know if it's the first fight of the night, Lou, but what are you looking at, sir, on the prelims here?
Yeah, I want to make sure we get to that first fight, and it's Tagir Ulanbekov, who is a Dagestani fighter, and he comes from the same camp as Nurmagomedov and Makachev, fights for Khabib. That said, this is a 125-pound guy. He is not of the same ilk or the same caliber of mixed martial artists as these other guys are. Long, tall, skinny, highly inactive, been injured. He's coming into this fight, and just like the BJJ guys from Brazil and the Russians have this rivalry, the greatest rivalry in mixed martial arts that's bubbling and boiling over right now, Dagestani wrestling, American wrestling. And who does Tagir get? A wrestling savant that fights out of the MMA lab here in Phoenix, Clayton Carpenter, that's had a couple of fights, stepped up each time. Tagir can run out of steam after 2 rounds, and Clayton Carpenter does his best fighting if he can get to the 3rd round. This is a mispriced fight, in my opinion. This young man, Clayton Carpenter, 28, is totally in his prime, and he's ready to make waves, and I believe he'll make waves by beating Tagir as a plus 250, plus 260. We took him early in the week, plus 275, so there's a juicy dog I'd like to impart on everyone.
Thanks for sharing that. The first fight of the night, Clayton Carpenter, plus 250. Lou, I don't know if you've got an opinion on this one, but I saw the weigh-in, so I want to ask you about it. Rosa and Perez, the women's fight here. No love lost, fun weigh-in. What do you make of this with Rosa being a 250 favorite?
That fight has a total of 2.5 over minus 500. The way you go there is you go to fight goes to split decision or majority decision, because we know it's going to decision. And these two gals, all they're going to do is slow dance at the high school prom for 3 rounds. We can trust the judges won't be able to find their rear ends with 2 hands and an Indian guy. So go to the prop market and find split decision or majority decision. You'll get a good plus number.
And it should be noted, Perez is the one that twerked in her opponent.
Yeah,
she twerks. That's why, hey, it works. People talk about her, right? But she twerked in her opponent's face after the last time she won. Which, hey, people have done worse in an octagon before. LouGamblu.com. All right, Lou, we got about a minute and a half or so left here still. Anything else? I asked you about the Rosa Perez fight. Dawson Ferreira, anything else? Any of these other fights? Spivak and Almeida, 30 seconds, Lou. Any other fight we didn't get to that caught your eye?
Dawson Ferreira, Dawson inside the distance. Almeida and Spivak, Almeida inside the distance. Last one, Talbot and Barcelos. Talbot's a 10 to 1 fave. Take him via decision. Barcelos is no slouch. You get a plus 200 or 300 on that.
Lou Gamblu, awesome stuff as always, Lou.
Thanks.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's do this thing. The Friday Night Free Show continues. We're into level 2. Quickest 120 minutes in sports talk and television. Sirius XM channel 159, SportsGrid Radio and TV. Broadcasting live on X. Monday night will be on YouTube at 7:30 Eastern, 7:24 Eastern for the national, 7:24 for the national championship game. We'll get your best bets before kickoff. And as I said it off the top of the show, being a Buffalo Bill fan, like the Bills better win on Sunday. Otherwise, Monday's going to suck as it is. And then on top of it, I hate the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I think they're going to win the national championship on Monday. I'm almost regretting doing the show, Cam, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm almost thinking, like, I don't know, like, you're like, this is really could be a dark day. Like, imagine the Bills lose. It's the first show after the Bills lose, and then it's Ohio State and Notre Dame, and we're on for like 5 hours. Could be torture.
Yeah, you're right, Gabe. That's not
watching. Touchdown Ohio State. That was great for Ryan Day. Hey, like, like, what am I going to like?
You're right. If Ohio State and Baltimore win, you're going to be lose your mind.
And even worse, I was like, all right, I guess I bet on Ohio State, but I hate betting on them. If I bet on them, like Notre Dame, so I'm screwed. I got to take Notre Dame almost to just be this hope for the best, and I don't even like them, to be honest. But
you've done shows with guys all week, and only Lorenzo's the only guy who likes Notre Dame plus the points.
He's a Notre Dame fan too. It should be noted.
Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah, he even said I'm a Notre Dame fan. So
right, exactly. That's great.
Oh, all these people are Notre Dame fans. Is Joe Gibbs? You a Notre Dame fan too, Joe? What's going on, Joe Gibbs? NFL ref stats one in the house. What's up, Joe?
I have no affiliation to any American university.
Nice, Joe. Whoever makes you money.
Joe's like, no.
I like it.
All right, let's get. Let's get to the referees stuff, because our boy Greg Frank in Master Control right now is concerned about the refereeing crew in Philadelphia. So we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start off with the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Clay Martin's 5th playoff game as a head referee. Home teams are 4-0 straight up. Oh, that's just great. Like, that's what the Chiefs need. How about this? The Chiefs are 6-0 straight up with Martin as well. He did the 1917 Black Friday game, so put that. The Raiders did cover. And how about this, Cam? You want it for Texan backers to make you feel better.
Thank you.
The Chiefs are 6-0 straight up, but only 2-4 ATS against the
There
spread
it
with
is,
this
Morency.
referee.
That's it. That's what I was looking for. A stat I could sink my teeth into. Yeah, just don't cover.
What can you tell us about Clay Martin, Joe?
The way that this crew's configured, very much a focus on the offensive side of the ball as far as penalties go. He ranks second overall for offensive penalties, 58.5% overall, second only to Sean Hockley. But in the NFL, in the playoffs, they do these mix and match crews, all-star crews. So I've covered it in my Twitter feed here. The configuration of this crew, it definitely points to focusing on the offensive side of the ball. And Kansas City and Houston, they mirror each other in that respect. The offensive line is really the point of issue for both teams. Offensive holding for Kansas City most prominently, and then for Houston, it's a little bit of both. You know, you got Laramie Tunsil, he's one of the most penalized players. You've got the guy for the Chiefs, he's one of the most penalized players. So I'll be interested to see how they call it tomorrow.
Joe Gibbs in the house. Joe, a lot of people, I don't know, I think it's almost wishful thinking. This is what happens when teams win all the time, and or people don't like them. You know, I remember it with Floyd Mayweather. Like, people wanted to see him lose, so they wouldn't be, people would bet against him all the time, and he would win, but, they didn't like him. And I'm almost like, am I betting on the Houston Texans because as a Bills fan, I want to see the Chiefs lose? Yes, I guess so. But it's 8.5. Well, is it a trap here? Especially, KC, and I brought it up earlier, Joe, if there's one team that you figure won't be rusty after 3 weeks, it's the Chiefs. That Andy Reid's a legend coming out of a bye week too. Is this just is this a bad spot for the Texans tomorrow, in your opinion? You've got KC winning and covering, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I detailed this. If you look at last season, the Texans won the AFC South, 2-point home dog to the Cleveland Browns, blew them out, went to Baltimore divisional round, kept it close, but then faded down the stretch. Look at this season, 2-point underdog, 2.5-point underdog to the Chargers, blew them out at home, going to KC. I think they keep it close, but I think eventually KC wears them down. And I predicted 27-17, somewhere in that range. I think the ceiling for Houston is about 16 to 17 points, barring some sort of special teams touchdowns.
I like where you're going with the score almost. I like the over, though. I think 41.5 is too light. Similar we saw last week with the total at 42 with the Chargers. And ironically enough, was the only game that ended up going over the number. All right, so Ron Torbert's crew. Ron Torbert consists of members of Sean Hockley, Sean Smith, and Brad Allen. What can you tell us about Ron Torbert, who will be doing the Washington and Detroit game?
Again, a focus on the offensive side of the ball with these guys. The way it's configured with Hockley, Torbert, Brad Allen, not so much, but, focus on the offense. Both offensive lines are pretty good. The lines really are the cream of the crop as far as that goes. And that's what makes them so good is people just they put this to the side. Pre-snap penalties, they're like, oh, whatever. The Lions rank 32nd in pre-snap penalties per game. And that means they can play ahead of the chains at a far greater rate than anyone else. So instead of being a 2nd and 6, it's a 2nd and 2 or something like that. And that lets them dominate time of possession, keeps the defense off the field, and eventually they win 34-26 time of possession, and they end up winning the game and covering.
Something I find interesting, though, both these teams have super aggressive secondaries. And it's the modern NFL secondary of which let's just hold and grab on every play. They're not going to call it on every play, right? I mean, the Seahawks Legion of Boom started that, and no one's really, let up on it. But Washington ranks number 1 and Detroit ranked number 2 for defensive pass interference penalties in the league. The Lions defense ranked number 1 and the Commanders ranked number 5 in surrendering automatic first downs via penalty. Will the refs let them play, or are they going to call it? Because I look at this, and even though the total's high at 55.5, if both these teams are lead the league in giving up big chunk penalties, what about the total at 55.5?
Well, it's a small sample size, but I can tell you last week, the wild card weekend, defensive pass interference penalties were down significantly. So that's one thing that did stand out to me. Whether that continues this week, I don't know. But I'm just telling you that's what happened last week. And I think it's a part of the reason that 5 of the 6 games stayed under the total. This is one of those ones you just got to watch and see. I think they will let them play, but that remains to be seen.
All right, so Sean Smith. Sean Smith is the head referee of the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia game. Just for the record, I see you. What's your final? Let me get to the final score here for people. I want to get your pick actually for the Detroit. Game? Yeah, Detroit, and you got Detroit winning 34-23.
Yeah, I think they win and cover. Everyone's building up Washington, and look, they've had a great season. But back to my point earlier, the Lions will control the game, control the clock, control the time of possession. I think they just wear them down late. I think they win and cover.
The thing is, Washington are playing a Detroit Lions team that score 33 points a game. You got them scoring 34. That's the thing when you play the Lions. Like, they're going to score 30 points. So, like, right. You better, you know what I mean? Can Washington do enough, Cam? Are they going to be able to get in the mid-20s? Like, if Washington only scores 21 points, they're not going to cover, bro. Because, like Detroit are going to get into 31, 34 territory. Hell, they could get into 37, 38 range. So, in other words, like, Daniels is going to have to score almost every time they get the ball. It's going to be a tough task for them.
It will, but he could run wild, Gabe, and I can see Detroit still got injuries on the defensive side. So, I think Washington could hang.
I do like the over, even though it's high, just because Gibbs is so good. This side of the pitch could just pop one.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, we're rolling along. We got Joe Gibbs in the house. Rob Vino's going to step up and in a minute. I believe Rob's going to hop up and in. He's in the green room. Let's keep this rolling with Joe Gibbs right now. We got Tony Finn as well. So, yeah, Sean Smith is the referee here. What about Sean Smith's crew here? The Rams have had success with Sean Smith. In 9 road games with Sean Smith, the Rams are 7-2. Home teams are just 48.5% ATS in Smith's career. However, in 2024 was a career best for home teams with Sean Smith, 12-3-1 against the spread this year. Smith's crew ranks number 1 in the NFL for unnecessary roughness. Last year and this year in the top 5. You say, Joe, that they do call. You were talking about how pass interference was down, but they will call unnecessary roughness in the playoffs. What's your thoughts on this crew?
So the way that they've compiled this crew, so you got Sean Smith, head referee, then you got Scott Novak and Clay Martin, part of their crews. Again, more of a focus on the offensive side of the ball. Seems like a common theme here. But, Martin and Novak ranked second and third, respectively, calling the highest percentage of offensive penalties. Those are officials that are on this crew. Smith himself is also one of the highest ranked referees calling offensive penalties. So that right there really sets the tone, and that's where the Eagles, I think, have a big advantage. The Rams' offensive line's decent, but the Eagles is great. And I just think, Philly, lousy weather. They're going to play. They're going to be mauling the Rams up front. The Rams aren't going to be getting off the quarterback like they did last week. It's not going to happen.
I like the Rams' honesty, though. And I always say the same thing about this stuff. The Rams were asked about the weather, and the Rams basically said, we don't care about the weather. Like, we're worried about Saquon Barkley. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they said, if we lose, it's because we don't stop Saquon Barkley. We're not worried about the weather. And I do believe them. And how about this, guys, with Jared Verse? This is for you, Greg, in Master Control. Jared Verse, I hate Eagle fans. They're so annoying. I hate Eagles fans for real. When I see that green and white, I hate it. I actually get upset. Like, I actually get genuinely hot when I see Eagles jerseys.
Yeah.
Jared Verse calling out the Eagle fans. That's the thing,
guy.
too. You have the feel-good good guys from L.A. with the L.A. Fire, and you've got the woman-hater Eagle fans. Go Rams.
If Philly plays like they did last week, they could lose. Like, they were god-awful last week.
That's what I'm saying. Dude, they got gifted to 7 points to start the game, Joe. They got gifted 7 points. The loser kicker on the Packers missed a 38-yarder. That's 10 points. They lost all their wide receivers, and they were still a touchdown away from covering the spread on their last drive of the game. Right? So,
I'm assuming Philly bounces back big time, but that I could be completely wrong. They could come out and stink again this week. I don't think so, but we'll see.
I'm just sort of thinking, you know what, now Hurts has another game under his belt. Their offense could be better, but you've got a 26-16 final score. All right, let's get into the Buffalo game before we bring Rob Vito in. Joe Gibbs, NFL Ref Stats 1 on Twitter X with us. All right, we've got Carl Sheffers. Carl Sheffers is the referee in the Buffalo Bill game. No crew is calling a lower percentage of overall penalties on the home team than Carl Sheffers. I like the sound of this as a Bills fan. Since 2016, home teams are 90-57. 61% with Sheffers, including 11-5 since in 2024. Home underdogs like the Bills currently have a 24-14-3 ATS record, 64% record with Sheffers over that time frame. The Buffalo Bills in the Josh Allen era are 8-2 with Carl Sheffers, including the 17-3 divisional round over Baltimore in 2021. Talk to me about Carl Sheffers. I like what I see so far as a Buffalo Bill fan.
Yeah. I mean, this game's getting a lot of traction on the internet. Look, the funny part about this is when the assignments come out for the games, first thing I look at is the head referee. But like I said, they mix and match these crews. So, for example, in the Lions-Commanders game, Ron Torbert's the head referee, but there's no other of his regular crew members on that game with him. Likewise, in the Kansas City game with Clay Martin, he's the only guy from his crew on it. This crew here, the Carl Sheffers crew, five of the seven officials are all regular Carl Sheffers crew members, and that really stood out to me as that's unusual. Like why is that happening? I'm just telling you that's very unusual. But the league has decided to opt for that. They've got. I mean, I've written it all down here, and it sounds fishy to me, but those are the numbers. I'm just telling you, that's very fishy.
Randomly selected. Nothing fishy about it, Joe. That's a Buffalo. How about this, too? The Buffalo Bills ranked number 1 in the NFL for offensive line false start penalties. Carl Sheffer's crew ranks dead last in the NFL calling false start penalties.
Wow.
Yeah. So you kind of see where this is going. And there's a lot of unhappy people in Baltimore. When I put this stuff out, straight away it's like, okay, what's going on here? And I can't disagree with them necessarily.
Tell them
But
to
with all
relax.
that being stated, you've got the Baltimore Ravens beating my Buffalo Bills 27-23.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that comes with an asterisk next to it. I've been very pro-Baltimore all season. Even when they were struggling early and the defense didn't look so good, I'm like, I like this team. They have the DNA in that franchise to win. And I've kind of ridden them down the stretch, and I'm not going to get off them now. But look, if Baltimore lost the game, like if Buffalo wins 27-26, I'm not going to go like, oh, my God, I can't believe it. But I put this in my write-up that I've ridden Baltimore to this point. I'm not going to get off now. I do think they're the better team. The officiating assignment does worry me, but we'll see what happens on Sunday. Maybe I'm overplaying it.
Joe Gibbs, NFL Ref Stats 1. You can find him over at Sharp Football as well. Great stuff as always, Joe. Thanks for the insight as far as the referees are concerned.
All right, guys. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Joe. We've got Rob Vino joining us next. I put a poll question up on Twitter X earlier in the day. We've got 326 responses so far. Who's going to win the football game, the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens? It's surprisingly one-sided. 58% Buffalo, 42% Baltimore.
Not good for the poll.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
This is Sports Rage. I am Morency. All right, this show is flying by right now. We had to get to the referee stats with Joe Gibbs. Let's bring in Rob Vino right now. Rob, our apologies for the delay, but very interesting stuff with Joe Gibbs. Joe's a smart guy, very unique angle world that he lives in. He just focuses in on the referees. And it really is amazing some of the stats that he has for these referees and trends and the history here, Rob. Very interesting stuff. I don't know how much you heard of it.
Well, I heard of it during Wager Talk segment the other day. The producer happens to be from Philly, now lives in California, and he made me full aware of Sean Smith and how he's anti-Eagle.
Well, you're Eagle fans. Man, you guys are a big buttercup, cupcakes. In Philly, you guys all crying about the referee already, eh, Rob?
You can't lump me in with these Eagle fans, Gabe.
I know.
I'm just here by coincidence. I'm not here because I love Delco. I mean, it's just a matter of coincidence that I landed here. But you know what's crazy is that when we play Major League Baseball, or when we bet Major League Baseball, we follow the umpires, the home plate umpires, like crazy.
Yes.
Right? Everybody knows what the umpires are doing. And in the NFL, nobody really gives a darn. But in the NBA, you know, some of those NBA refs were very
hell breaks loose, Rob. Every NBA playoff game. Oh, this is an outrage. Can't believe it. Oh, you know what I mean? Like every game. And like we said, we're going over this. Baltimore fan not happy, but there really are some trends here with Carl Sheffers. Like we were saying, the Buffalo Bills are 8-2 with Carl Sheffers. The Bills ranked number 1 in the league with false starts. Sheffers' crew ranks dead last for calling false start penalties in the league. There's just so many, you know what I mean? There's so many numbers on the Buffalo Bills side, and Sheffers in Baltimore, you know, Baltimore's not happy about it. Home teams cover 61% of the time with Carl Sheffers. Home underdogs are 24-14 against the spread, 64% under Carl Sheffers. The Bills are 8-2 under Sheffers with Josh Allen, including the 17-3 divisional round win over the Baltimore Ravens in 2021. What do you think of the Buffalo Bill Baltimore Raven game, Rob? Let's start off with the total. You and I being over players. What do you think of the total at 51.5?
I think it's got a chance. It's the hardest game to handicap side, right? I mean, I found 3 really small advantages that I thought all pointed toward Buffalo. And it's not like they're kept secrets at all. But, the home field, obviously, that environment, the last time they played it was in Baltimore, so it could be different. But the addition of Bernard, Milano, and Taron Johnson is huge. Those were the top 3 tacklers for the Bills last week, all back in the lineup. They didn't play against Baltimore the first time. And then Zay Flowers doesn't practice again today, Gabe. Last week, Zay Flowers' name came up almost as frequently as any other name mentioned in the playoffs. Can Lamar survive without Zay Flowers? Can Lamar survive without Zay Flowers? Can Lamar survive? And now this week, it really does make an impact. Buffalo would have such a deeper wide receiving core, or at least a list of options over Baltimore in that case. And I'll tell you, I was looking at props early this morning, and I really don't play a lot of props, but I didn't even see Amari Cooper's name mentioned, which, and this was only one site. That just goes to show you how deep Buffalo is at wide receiver. So I think
you know what he is,
three
Rob?
things add up.
He's 1.5 catches, 21.5 yards. I took over. That's what Bills brought him in for. That's ridiculous, Gabe. Amari Cooper, 2 catches? Yeah. Like, that's...
I could see him having, like, 2 catches, but one of them being, like, a 44-yard touchdown.
Right.
There you go.
Right? Like, I think he's going to have a big play. Like, I agree. You know, that's what makes the Bills tough, though, guys. And bang on, Rob. And I know this is easier said than done. They just have to stop this guy, and that guy. But, okay, you got Derrick Henry, you got Lamar Jackson. So we'll sort of lump it in. You've got the ground game. You know, you've got these 2. Besides Mark Andrews, who the hell are they going to, like, you know what I mean? If you're the Bills, all right, let's take Mark Andrews out of this so Lamar doesn't have his security blanket here. And we've got to contain Lamar and Henry, and the Ravens could be in trouble here. You know, to me, the Bills are going to ambush him early. I think, you know, it's up to Josh Allen, man. Yeah, this is one of those get the F out of the way games. Like, it seriously is. You know what I mean? The game starts, get the ball. If I was the Bills, I wouldn't defer. I'd say, give me the effing ball. Give me the ball. We're going to score, and we're going to run we're going to put them on their heels. You got to get Baltimore playing from behind. It'll take them out of their game plan. But it sounds like you like the Buffalo Bills in this spot, Rob.
I would side with them. Yeah, I think, you know, I know we're short on time here, Gabe, real quick, but Buffalo brings the same thing to the table. Josh Allen and James Cook. James Cook is so underrated. That's his that offensive line.
And they've got like 7 wide receivers.
Exactly.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Countdown to kickoff is on. The Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs at 4:30 Eastern Time Saturday. Washington and Detroit Rock City, 8 o'clock. Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern. The Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles, and, of course, the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, a game we've been talking a lot about tonight, 6:30 Eastern Time. Baltimore, I'm seeing a -1. There are a couple of minus 1.5s out there, total 51.5. So, in closing, Rob, any final thoughts on this football game before we move on to the other ones? All right, we'll get Rob Vino back. We'll get Rob Vino back in a moment. We've lost Rob for a second.
Oh, there. Whoa.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yes.
Rob is back. So, Rob, in closing, Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens. Before we move on to the other games, what are your thoughts in closing?
I'd side with, and they weren't my strongest plays, but I would side with the Bills, and I would side with. I think even in the bad weather, it can get over. Can you tell you the
so
truth?
we were kidding earlier about the referees, and Eagle fans not being happy about the refereeing crew here. So you got the LA Rams getting 6 total, 43.5. Both these defenses have played so well, Rob, down the stretch. You and I both love betting overs. Is this too light at 43.5? And what's your feel being in Philadelphia? What are you hearing? What's the vibe that you can tell us about this game?
Well, once we get beyond AJ reading a book on the sidelines, it's fairly positive.
I got to get that book. I got to get that book. Inner Excellence. That's the name of the book. Inner Excellence. It became the #1 seller on Amazon Books actually this week because of him. Like, he should get a cut. For people who don't know, AJ Brown was getting frustrated last week during the football game against the Packers, and he busted out a book on the sideline, and he was just reading a book by himself. And they focused in on the book, and it's a book called Inner Excellence. And asked after the game, he just said, "I was just reminding myself how great I was." And so he's a very confident man, A.J. Brown. But what do you think, Rob, about the game?
I like the Eagles. I really do. I laid 6 with Philadelphia. I just think that the trench differential, And again, I didn't refer too much to the Baltimore-Buffalo game played earlier this season because I don't know that it matters as much. But this one, I think, matters. I could see an absolute repeat of what happened the first time around where Philly ran for over 300 yards against this team. LA just doesn't defend the run all that well. They pass rush well with their front four, but that's about the size of it. I figure Saquon will run here. And it's just not the same game as Minnesota was, Gabe. You go after Darnold. Minnesota couldn't protect. Minnesota doesn't run. Minnesota doesn't do anything that the Eagles do. I find it hard for Stafford as a stationary target to escape the pass rush. Philadelphia sacked him 5 times the first time around. They had like 11 quarterback hits on him in 36 attempts or something crazy. I could see the same exact thing happening here. I do think the cold weather would bother Los Angeles. And I don't know where Cooper Kupp is gone, but that pass receiving weaponry has seemed to come down to Tyler Higbee and Puka Nacua, and that's it. And last thing I'll say real quick, Gabe, in this weather, and I did handicap this in. Normally I don't think of stuff like this, but Kyron Williams has a tough time hanging on to the football. And he's got like 7 fumbles this year, and the Eagles are going to strip at him, and the weather is going to be about 22 with the feels-like temperature and some snow. So I like the Eagles -6. I think they'll play better than they did last week.
You know, it's strange. You talk about Williams and his fumble issues, and there has been some fumble issues, but he played in cold weather. I mean, this guy played at Notre Dame before, right? I mean, he played for the Irish, so it's kind of strange, as you say, but he has had those issues. And, you know, just the emotional standpoint, too, of digging down deep, playing on Monday night, going back to L.A., now you're going to the East Coast here. It's a tough spot for the Rams. It really is. They're going to need a lot of things to go their way in the football game. What about the total, Rob, in closing with that, 43.5?
Well, I think it's set in a good place, but you just can't account for turnovers in that kind of weather that might lead to scores. So 43, in my opinion, would seem a little low. Last week, I think it was only a 32-point game between Philly and Green Bay. Philly blew a lot of scoring opportunities. I don't think that they'll blow here. So I guess if I had to, I would try over, Gabe. But I like the side better.
Weather not a factor in Detroit on Saturday night. Total 55.5. Is this going to live up to the hype, or is the total too high for your blood?
Here's where they make us think, Gabe. When they get to 55, that's a crucial number. And then they throw a hook on it, and they make.
So you, Sammy Hager? I can't bet 55.
55.
Can't bet 55. Can't drive 55. Can't bet 55. 55.5. So you got to get a nice clean 56, Rob.
Yeah, we hit the brakes on 55 at least and think a little bit. But I'll say this: Detroit's a funny story, right? The last game heading into Minnesota, everybody, including myself, Detroit can't stop a nosebleed, giving up 40 a week. That game will go over with Minnesota, and they put up that defensive performance. Now the narrative is totally switched. Now Detroit with Alex Anzalone, they can stop it. But again, Darnold's last 2 games, we just used it as an example with the Rams. Use it as an example here. Jaden Daniels is not Sam Darnold. I think Washington can get to the 23-point mark, and if they get there, it's going over, because Detroit will get their share. What I like personally, the best of all, and I know this rust versus rest question is like one of the oldest in the book where sports betting is concerned. I kind of lean towards rest being good for Detroit here. Their first half team total is 16.5. I really think they're getting to 17 in the first half. I think they got Montgomery back this week. I think the offense.
It's a good eye there.
Yeah. The thing that scares you about Detroit playing them overs now, I'm finding out, is I never know what decision Dan Campbell's going to make. Is he going to screw me out of 3 points by going for it on 4th and 5 from the 30-yard line? Hey, there's too many.
Well, not to mention, their defense is good too, right? The Lions' defense is good. They come up with stops, and that can hurt the total too. You know what? I brought it up the same thing. I said the same thing earlier. I said, for the total here, can Washington get into the mid-20s, which I think they can. But what about the number, Rob? Because I want to take Washington here, but, I have an inner voice telling me, man, they could lose this game like 37. Like 37-23 wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean? 41-24 wouldn't surprise me. Because Detroit scored. They're going to score. And they're not going to, I don't think they'll be nervous. They're going to show up. They're going to hang 33, 35, 41, whatever. it's going to be hard for Washington to trade touchdowns all game, isn't it?
Yeah, they're newcomer on the block too, where this type of game is concerned. Last week's game was fine, beat Tampa Bay, but now you're into the second round. It's even bigger. This crowd environment, I think, is even tougher. Obviously, this offensive line is tougher. It's just a tough assignment for Washington to go out there and win. So I find it hard to bet them. The back door is always open for them with Jaden Daniels, which is scary if Detroit just feels like giving them, a touchdown by playing prevent defense. But I find it hard to bet Washington. Gabe, in the past, it was such a strong number where you just say, find the winner and don't worry about the points. That used to be and it's come back to earth a little bit here, but it might be the case in this one.
We got about a minute here. Houston and Kansas City is kind of a similar situation. A lot of people trying to talk themselves into the Houston Texans here, but are they really going to win the football game? They're 0-5 in the divisional round in their history.
The first bet I made this week was Kansas City. And again, I think the rest helps Kansas City. Again, I think Andy Reid played it a little coy under the radar with Marquise Brown. Didn't really break out all the stuff he'll break out here. This quarterback, C.J. Stroud's been sacked 54 times. We know the type of defensive blitz schemes that Spagnuolo comes up with in the playoffs. There's too many weapons here, Gabe, for Kansas City. This might be the most weaponry Mahomes has had in quite some time. When you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins being maybe the fourth or fifth
That's
option.
why I like the over 41.5. I think Kansas City will score. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the total's too light. All right, we've got to get out of here, Rob. Finally, the Dodgers signed a player. It was a rough offseason. Sasaki's finally done. Signed, sealed, delivered, Rob.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? See that guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
This is SportsRage. I am Morency. Quick basketball update, actually. New Mexico are rolling Boise State right now. It's 34-19 with 5 minutes left in the first half. At the pit, they're laying 13.5, 151.5 is the total. Fresno are up on Air Force, 67-58 with 2 minutes left in the game. NBA basketball, we're at the half. The Lakers are now laying 10.5. They closed as 9.5-point favorites against the Brooklyn team. They lost by 59 the other night It's 51-45. I do think the Lakers will eventually pull away in this game. And Memphis are drilling San Antonio right now. All right, the show's been jam-packed tonight. We'll keep it rolling. Let's bring in Tony Finn, who I kind of view as a Kansas City fan. You're like a Royal fan. You're a Royal fan, Chief fan, and Dodgers hater. So I guess you hate the Rams too, Tony? You don't trust them. How you doing, Tony Finn?
Let me. No.
I told Tony.
No, and
Tony's the only one in the world, though. That even after the Sasaki, you're like, I still have some question marks about the rotation.
I don't trust him. I don't trust him. Don't trust him.
Yeah,
don't trust him. Don't trust the manager. Don't trust the front office. But I'll bet on you. Damn sure of that. You know it. You know it, Gabe. So you're playing -1.5 all damn summer.
This guy's unreal. I love you, Tony.
Hey, the Dodgers are in rotation right now.
-1.5 all damn summer.
Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Roki Sasaki. It's not a bad five.
Can Flaherty sign with the Jays? How about Flaherty signs with the Jays? Can we get him? Somebody?
No.
A Rosenberg? Yeah. Nothing.
Flaherty's they should. Whatever. You got a couple of. There's still a bunch of players out there.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't know. The Jays never. One thing I don't understand about the Jays, they never have a plan B.
No, they don't.
I don't that's my whole thing with this team. Like they go all in. Oh, we're gonna go all in on Ohtani and stuff. It's like, all right, while you do that, there should be and listen. When it's inevitable that Ohtani signs with the Dodgers, let's turn around and do this. They don't do anything. And then they rinsed and repeat this year with Soto. And now they just went through this with Sasaki again. It's like, guys, you get your fans' hopes up, and then, which is, I think it's unreasonable, but then they never come back with anything. They're almost like they're like rich parents that don't give their kids Christmas presents.
Until they change their name. Until it's Sky Dome. Sky Dome. It's got to be the Sky Dome again, and they're going to win.
I'll give you that. I still call it Sky Dome. That's fair enough, Tony. I thought you were going to say they need to change the Blue Jays name. Got to change the Blue Jays name.
They do all these fixes. Settle down, Tony. They do all the fixes to that damn building, but it's just like putting lipstick on a pig. You need a real stadium.
Well, all that does, Cam. Their renovations, all that does is make them richer.
I know.
So that's good for the organization because they invest money in the stadium, but they're just going to charge people more. But at some point, it's going to catch up to them. Whatever. We'll move on from that organization. But it's not from a lack of trying. So they're kind of a weird team. You can't rip their ownership group. They spend money. They got the 6th highest payroll in Major League Baseball as it is right now. They just don't sign the right players. They don't have the right manager, etc. They just, they're not in it. They're not in sync right now. All right, Tony. So Kansas City. What are you outside, Tony? I swear to God, you're indoors. We have guests that are outside that there's less wind and shuffling.
There's always an audience. Yeah. They love you. My neighbors love you, Gabe. And there's always an audience.
It's just don't move around so much. That's all it is.
It's about 40 degrees.
It sounds like you got a contractor in there. What are you building?
Just don't move.
Me?
Kansas City. What do you like in the NFL, Tony?
Yeah.
Well, I like Kansas City, especially with the weather, the way it's called to be tomorrow. 25, wind chill about 0, 25-mile-an-hour gusts of wind. Stroud 0 for 2 in 10 games that are 30 degrees or less. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs 9-1 in games that are 30 degrees or less. And I know that's a small sample size, that 9-1, but the 0-2 is even a smaller sample size, right? I trust Spags. I trust Spags more than I trust Dave Roberts. So, yeah, I like the Chiefs tomorrow. And, I thought I heard Rob at the end of his little spiel, as he's exiting, he kind of went through that, that Berman 2-minute drill that he had. And he talked about the fact that Andy Reid's been Andy Reid and he's held back. I think you're going to see a lot from Hollywood. I think you'll see a lot from this receiving corps. This Chiefs offense has been the best it's been in a year, the last 3 months of the season. As soon as they got that receiving corps semi-healthy, as soon as Pacheco came back. So the Chiefs can be average and win this game. Houston's got to be the best they can be. Agreed?
Too much Chiefs on this network with you and the steamroller.
Well, it was a very convincing argument, though. It is. Everything he said is true.
It's true.
The Texans need to play a perfect game to keep up, right? And do they have it in them? Probably not. Like, I mean, it's just almost like wishful thinking, like when you're taking the Texans plus the 8.5. I do like the over a lot in this football game, the over 41.5, because as Tony said, you look at the Chiefs, you got, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, DeAndre Hopkins is done. No, he isn't. So you got DeAndre Hopkins. You got Hollywood Brown and Mahomes have got a good chemistry going. You throw in Xavier Worthy, a couple of trick play sweeps here. Pacheco back in the mix. And, Mr. Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and it's Mahomes on third downs. Like, even if you stop him on first and second down, they always just find a way to get the third down conversion. Like, it's super annoying. All right, what about Washington and Detroit, Tony? Washington and Detroit.
The Houston defense,
they're
2 and 4 covers underneath, under. I mean, under a lot of receptions, a lot of short passes. I like to listen. How do you play against Detroit? They've proved me wrong 100 times in a 17-game season. That I said these guys are done. They got more talent on the injured reserve than most teams have in their starting lineup this time of the year. They continue to play well. Granted, the caveat there is the end of the season. I think Minnesota proved themselves to be a very pedestrian team with Darnold.
They proved themselves to be frauds.
The helm, so.
Fraudulent.
There you go. Yeah, so how the Commodores, the Washington singing Commodores, have been pretty darn good enough to beat Tampa Bay. Good game over the total.
Morency, who is this guy?
Commodores.
Listen, Commodores. Honest to God.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? See that guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Let's roll. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. Still cracking up from the Commodores and Cam Stewart's rage right now about missing a can. Right now, they're missing.
Yeah,
his
steal stuff from their man. I go away for a while. Next thing you know, I mean, you're taking away stuff like it's Uber Eats. It's like
I've been there, bro. That's when you got to question your relationship stuff. When you got to hide your own booze in the house. You're like, I've done it. Where I'm like, man,
I'm hiding it.
Where would she not look?
She knows every trick. Like where I hide everything. She's really good. Really good.
You've got to get more creative, bro.
Yeah, I do.
You got to start. I won't say it. You got to start going outside. Just start putting stuff outside.
You know
in the yard there.
I got an idea. The smelly hockey bag. That's got that one. You know, I like with old hockey equipment in there.
I told you guys when I was in a band, it was DRI taught me this. I was on the road with DRI when I was a kid, opening up for them. And bands are all savages, right? Like with the booze backstage and stuff. So, like, sometimes in these shows, they have, like, you know, a bunch of coolers and stuff, and they got all the drinks. And DRI got in the room, and they waited till everyone left. And he looked over me. Spike from DRI said, hey, Gabe, check this out. He goes, little trick. He took a quarter of milk can, and he poured it into the water in the cooler, and it just looked like sludge. And you couldn't see anything underneath. And people were like, oh, it's gross. And he put a little garbage on top of it and stuff. He goes, dude, no one will put their hand in this all night. And he gave me a high five on the way out. And it was still there after the show. Yeah,
that's amazing.
He poured milk in, and he put some like crap and cans on top of it.
That's a veteran.
He walked out of the room, and no one touched it. That's
so
punk rock, man. Those are the
is.
tricks. You know what I mean?
You're right, Gabe. That's a wicked move. I like that.
That's what we do now. Pour the milk in. No one's going to touch us.
Problem is, I'm not in a band, and I don't have a cooler in the kitchen. But anyway, great idea, though.
It's a little tip. I know. Little tip. What are your best? Hold on, Tony.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. What are your best bets? We're on the clock here. So what are Cam's best bets here? What do you got? Houston and me personally, I'll admit, everybody, I'm usually pretty confident about stuff and pretty sure-footed. I don't know, bro. I'm confused as hell here. Like I'm almost like I'm on a jury here. Everyone talks. I'm like, yeah, this is a good point. And like I said, I almost feel like I'm walking into a trap. If I take Houston, it's the bad pick. Detroit's probably going to cover. Like, honestly, my gut here now, I'm going to tell you guys, both favorites probably freaking cover tomorrow. What's your pick, Cam, tomorrow?
Well, I'm taking the Dogs, so I'm probably dead. I like Houston, but I like the over. Give me the Commodores with another hit classic. What a band at 9.5 saxophones. I also like the Rams on the weekend and Buffalo Bill. That's what I'm Philly and Buffalo Bill. That's what I like.
I'm going to take the easy way out. I'll do the Cam Stewart special here that you do on the Monday nights. I'll take the Chiefs and the Lions on the money line parlay or 7-point teaser, and then I'll crank it up 10-point teasers with the Texans plus 18.5, Commanders plus 19.5, and whatever.
I've already done that.
I'm going to try to middle these son of a bitches. I do like some plays though. I like the over 41.5 in the Houston Kansas City game. I like the over 55.5 in Detroit. I think it's going to get there. Love Vino's look of over 16.5 Lions first half team total. Tony, what's your picks for Washington, Detroit, LA, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Baltimore?
Well, I think everybody's hot on the Rams. I think you're getting a steal in this line. My personal opinion, Eagles minus that 6.
Yeah, Eagles.
Anything less than minus 6.5 is perfect. I mean, the Eagles, I think, let up last week against the fraud team. The Ravens played a fraud, and it's the Steelers who embarrassed. I think I was embarrassed for them. And the Bills are going to play like they've been playing, and they're at home, and they haven't lost a game this year at home. They certainly aren't going to lose this Sunday. I like this Final Four to be 1 seeds and 2 seeds. There you are.
So Buffalo versus Kansas City and Philadelphia versus Detroit.
Yep.
And then who do you got meeting in the Super Bowl after?
Well, I've only played one future. I played an exacta, and believe it or not, I played Kansas City to beat Philadelphia.
I told you he's a KC fan, Cam. It's obvious.
No,
so you can't hide
I'm not even going to lie to you, Gabe. I did futures at the start of the year. Buffalo to win the Super Bowl, Detroit to win the Super Bowl, and I have exact matchup. Buffalo meets Detroit in the Super Bowl. No lie.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm an idiot because I predicted Buffalo and Detroit before the year started. I didn't bet it though, Cam, until recently. So I don't have the fat number.
We could be on the
it's
same
14-1 and 16-1 now, essentially.
Yeah, it's like 55 before.
Like if you take like Detroit, whatever, like Buffalo to beat Detroit is 16-1. Detroit to beat Buffalo is like 14-1, depending on your book. But that's sort of the range right now. Thing is, because all the contenders are so good still, right?
I know.
All right, get Tony over a wager talk. I'll post some pics on Twitter X. I'll do a video. It looks like TikTok's dead. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.